Hi, this is FIFO. I'm a stellar architect at the AHA company and co-creator of Moonlight. And I'm here today to walk through some of the things we've been cooking under the hood and show the progress of how the Moonlight project is coming together. We are going to testnet publicly very soon. So the idea of these in the next videos is to highlight a little bit on how things work, how different entities can integrate with the solution, and give you a sense of how the final experience will be to the end user. So without further ado, let me just get into it. So for today, I am running the Moonlight Sandbox. This is the web application that we put together to exemplify different configurations and use cases. So we have like different workspaces, which are like projects that you can configure completely different with new accounts, new contracts, do different deployments, and integrate with this in different ways for the end user. So I have a bunch of configurations. I can come here and show we have plenty of different accounts configured, different columns and channels. So don't worry, I'll go through this process with you. Let me just select the banks one, which is a project that has a specific configuration I want to show today. But just to give you some overview of what we have over here. Basically, this provides us with a couple of different capabilities under the settings. So it allows us to create and initialize different accounts for the purposes of the protocol. We can also deploy quorum contracts and configure these according to our privacy providers and how these quorums are going to operate. And we can also deploy different channels for specific currencies and also for specific regions and quorums that are going to operate with these. Once we have our setup, we can then come to the wallet tab, in which we have these demo mobile wallet that exemplifies how the experience would be from the user perspective. So I'll go ahead and start from scratch, first covering the setup, and then I'll walk through the user experience. So here you can see we have a bunch of different accounts, and these are all Stellar key pairs, Stellar accounts. They're just going to be used with different purposes, and you see some are flagged as initialized and some are not. The ones that are initialized are actual accounts that were initialized in the Stellar network and have funds. So for example, this is the admin account, it has some lumens, it has done a bunch of the transactions. So you see that some of these don't have this flag or the link. This means that this is a simple key pair used to identify an identity, and it doesn't send any direct transactions to Stellar and doesn't need to provide any on-chain information directly. So I'll go ahead here and cover a little bit of what we have. We have one central admin, and this is just to control the contracts. This is the account that we're using to deploy and initialize each one of the contracts and their configurations. Here we're using a central account, but the idea is that you could use multiple accounts, use a separated or shared control over these contracts. This could be part of the quorum itself. Here, for the purpose of the simplicity of the demo, we are going to use just one central admin to manage it all. We have a bunch of treasury accounts. These belong to the privacy providers. So they use these treasury accounts to trigger their transactions on Stellar, to pay for the network fees, and also to move funds into and out of these privacy channels. We have the providers itself. These ones are simply key pairs identifiers. So these are used to verify that a provider has actually reviewed certain transactions and has actually signed for it to be authorized. And these are the ones that are controlled in the quorum. So whenever we approve a provider to operate in a channel, we are approving this identifier. And of course, we have a bunch of different end users, which are here to exemplify people interacting with the protocol, receiving and sending funds. So just to add to this example, I'll create a new provider. Let's say, what ones do we have here? Like, this is the banks example. So we're using banks as the providers. We have different banks for different countries. So and cities. We have Buenos Aires Bank in Argentina. We have a Rio Bank, which should be in Brazil. We have a France Bank, a Spain Bank. So we are using these to show different quorums on specific regions. I'll go ahead and create, let's say, an Italy Bank. So Italy Bank, this will be a provider. This is not initialized, it's just a provider identifier. And here we go, we have the Italy Bank. And now I'll go and create the treasury for it. So Italy treasury OPEX, and this one is associated with the Italy Bank that we just created. All right, so what it's doing under the hood, it's interacting with the backend to generate this account. And there you go. There's the Italy treasury. It's here, and it's just a normal account initialized with Lumens. So I'll go ahead now and cover the quorums. So the quorums are these groups of privacy providers that operate together in a close relationship, and they allow users to integrate with privacy within a shared trusted context. So here you can see we already have two quorums. We have one for South American banks, another one for European banks. So these could be operating under different regulations and ensuring that their users only interact with other users within the same context. So here we can click on the South American ones, and we can see the contract is deployed. We can see a bunch of transactions that have been executed already for this quorum. We can also click here and see the providers that we registered to this quorum. So we have the Rio Bank and the Buenos Aires Bank. So let me go ahead. We just created an Italy one, so I'll add it to the European banks. So I'll just come here, select Italy Bank, and add this provider. So it's running a transaction as the admin to this quorum, adding the Italy provider as an authorized provider to execute transactions in these private contexts. So here's the Italy Bank. Now the Italy Bank can operate within this quorum. And ultimately, we have the channels. And the channel is the safe space where the funds are stored and the users transact against, and where all of the balances and all of the ownerships are controlled in a private manner. So here we have a bunch of different channels that were created already. We have a South American channel for XLM. We have another South American channel for USDC. We have a European channel for XLM. So let's create a European channel for USDC as well. So I'll create the EU USDC. It's being created by the admin that I mentioned before. The quorum that will operate is the European banks. And here's an important aspect. Whenever we're creating these channels, we can create those and integrate to the same quorum. So this means that these same quorum of European banks control these two channels that are operating with XLM and USDC. So I'll select here the asset USDC. So here we can see the quorum members that will be operating in this channel. I'll create it. And what is going on here is that the contract is being deployed and configured to set a new channel and connect to these quorum contracts. So it just take a while. There you go. We can already see it under here. And if we click here, we can see the contract has been deployed and has been configured. So this one can already be used to receive USDC funds and manage addresses in it. All right, so this is all we need in terms of configuration. Also, we have a bunch of users that have been previously created. I'll create a new one just to show how a new user would come into the Moonlight space. Actually, I'll try two combinations. First, let's create, let's think of a name. Let's say John. John is a new user. It is a user that operates on Stellar, has some XLM, so it's an initialized account. And then later I'll show a different variation. So there you go. John was just created. It is a fresh new account, and it has some XLM as any normal Stellar user. So let's say John wants to start using Moonlight and wants to start having private balances. So John would access his wallet, and here we have this demo one. On the right side, we can expand these, which is the X-ray vision, which can kind of show a little bit of what is going under the hood as we're interacting with these screens. So the first step is, and as I'm in my mobile wallet, oh, and by the way, I have to select John here. Where is the user? John. So I'm using John. This is John's wallet. First thing he does is select which channel he wants to operate with. So this could be a different balance that he has on his wallet. He could have multiple balances. So John will come here and select, let's say, the South American XLM. And here we can see the list of providers that he can connect to. At this first step, not connecting to anyone, just to show that by simply loading the channel state on his wallet, we can already see that John doesn't have any private balances yet, and John has just public XLM, which is the normal XLM on Stellar. There is no transactions, there is nothing that has been done so far. And here in the X-ray, you can see that we already derivated in the standardized way for the protocol 300 addresses for John specifically for this channel. So this is all done based on the root key pair that John's controls. So John has his Stellar account, and based on his seed phrase, we derivated all the standard addresses, and all of those are free. We can see the state of those here. They are in free state. We can filter, so nothing has been done yet. So let's say John wants to make a first deposit. So for this, I'll show the workflow of someone sending lumens directly, executing a direct deposit. So John will come here and select ramp, and John hasn't connected to any provider yet. So this is an important step. Whenever we interact with these channels, we gotta do it through a provider that is authorized in this channel and is part of the quorum. They will be our shielding partner. They are the ones ensuring that our data is private and auditable by the respective regulation, and it's only accessible by those that should have access to that data. And whenever I'm interacting through one provider, he only has access to what I'm doing with this provider. So I'll go ahead and connect. We are already selected for the South American Bank's XLM channel. So I'll select the Rio Bank. John is using the Rio Bank. He has done a KYC with the Rio Bank, and now he wants to make a direct deposit. So John is going to send 100 XLM from his public balance into the pool. And here we can select the level of entropy. And you can think of entropy as how much we want to mix this balance, how much we want to break it down into different addresses and make it more private and better shield our information, our balances. By increasing these, you can see that we also impact the network fee, so how much we're paying for this service. This could be directly used to cover the network fees or just to cover the service fee by the provider. So I'll just keep medium. I'll click on review. And what we're seeing here is that the total amount I'll be sending is 100 XLM plus the 0.25 XLM for the fees. And if I click here, I can already see that 5 addresses have been reserved. They are reserved for this transaction. And if I come here to the details, I can see that the transaction will be creating 5 UTXOs. So it will be allocating 5 of these private balances inside the channel. I can click here and expand, and I can see the Moonlight operations that will be executed. I can see that I have 5 different create operations with various balances that account for the total amount that I'm depositing. I can see the deposit operation, which means my G account, my Stellar address sending funds to the pool. And also I can see the conditions. And the conditions, they mean that whenever I'm signing for this deposit, it can only be executed. This transaction can only go on if the bundle on Moonlight includes these operations. Therefore, if someone tries to tamper with the transaction throughout the way and remove one of these addresses and get my funds, it will not happen, because this deposit can only go through if these addresses are directly created as an outcome. And here it's a very simple setup. You can see we have all the addresses and the deposit tied together. But the idea is that we can mix these combinations with not just our own transactions, but the providers and other users as well. I won't get too deep into this, as this is a topic for the future. So I'll just go ahead and make my deposit, because so far we just said I'm depositing 100 XLM, I'm paying this fee, and I'll execute the transaction. So what is going on here is that it is connecting through the provider. The provider is bundling these Moonlight transaction. It's performing our custom framework for authorization, and there you go, it was already executed. So you can see I have already 100 XLM as private balance. I have paid the portion of my public balance to do so. Here I can see the history of the deposit, and I can see that it has some additional UTXOs that were added by the provider itself. There's nothing crazy going on here. This is a very simple example. But in the real use case with shared users, we should be a much more mixed and dynamic transaction happening on here. So I'll just come back here. I can see already that I have like these 5 different private balances, and I can start transacting with other people. I am already holding some private balance. Also, you notice here that this transaction history, the details of this transaction is associated to the provider that I'm doing business with. So if I decide to connect to a different provider, Buenos Aires, there is no transaction yet, because I didn't make any transaction through this provider yet. So if someone checks the transaction in the network, all they're going to see is that it was a bundle executed by that provider. So if I come here, I can see the transaction Stellar. I know there's a lot going on, but what you're seeing here is basically all of those different addresses being created, the deposit, all of the conditions that were associated with it. And I don't think Stellar Expert is going to show, yes, exactly, it just shows like the normal Stellar authorization, but there's additional authorizations added by Moonlight, which are custom ones, in which you have specific signatures for each action that is moving or spending money based on certain conditions. And you also have a specific authorization that is added by the provider to say that this is a verified bundle that this provider is certifying, and they hold the data for the bundle. Therefore, if some auditing organization needs to review the details of this transaction, they can see what was the provider involved, and they can contact the provider to run the process of verifying and audit the details of this transaction. So I'll just come back here, and now I'll do something a little bit different. So we created John. We have a bunch of users here. Let me see if Alice has some balance. I think Alice doesn't have any balances yet. I'm selecting yes. So in the South American channel for XLM, Alice has no balances. But different from John, Alice also does not have any public XLM because it's an account that was never initialized on Stellar. So what are we going to do here? We're going to do a different workflow for depositing. This time, we are not doing a direct deposit. So let's go with Alice and select Buenos Aires Bank, and we'll do a third-party ramp. So in this example, Alice is on-ramping directly into Moonlight. His Stellar account was never initialized. He doesn't even want to touch public lumens. And she could be doing that even from a different network. She could be using a different key pair from Solana or Ethereum. So she doesn't even need to be a direct Stellar user to run this transaction. So Alice is going to pay with her credit card directly to the provider, so to the Buenos Aires Bank, and she's going to deposit 500 XLM. She's going to select high entropy, so we want a little bit more of addresses being used in the segregation, so we can see here that she'll be paying the equivalent to 500 and a half a lumen as, because of the fees, to the Buenos Aires Bank through a credit card operation, and in exchange she'll get these 10 addresses funded in a mixed way. So I'll just go ahead and execute. And as this transaction is processed, now the provider is using part of his treasury not just to mix and spice up a little bit the transaction, but also to send the funds as part of this on-ramp process. So we've come here and see the deposit. We can see a bunch of addresses. You can see there's definitely more. We can see another deposit. We can see different create operations being used and spans. Here we can see all of these different conditions used by these spans. So you can see that the provider is already adding a bunch of additional operations in the bundle. You can also click here and see the details of these operations if you'd like in the sandbox. You can see the address that is being spanned, you can see the conditions that were used when spanning it, and you can see the custom signature used by this UTXO to authorize just this individual operation. So I'll just come back here, and we can see that Alice holds some private balance even though the account was never initialized in Stellar. Why is this important? Because it means that if someone tries to identify how much Alice holds or her interactions in the network, they won't be able to find any direct information that ties these balances and these transactions to Alice's address, because Alice's address is never stored on chain. All of this relationship is done through the provider. And if for some reason Alice stopped doing business with the Buenos Aires Bank, she wanna switch the relationship she had with the provider, she want to use a different one, since everything is non-custodial and controlled by your central key pair. So Alice can simply come here, select the real bank, for example, with which she has no history, and start transacting. So let's show an example and make Alice pay some private XLM to John. So let me just go ahead and, oops, not this one. Where is the other one? There it is. Let's separate these windows and let's put them side by side so I can, oops. There you go, not this one. There you go. So let me just go ahead and show Alice sending some funds to John. Where is John? John is here. Let me select John in the South American banks. Let's keep, we don't need to have any provider selected for receiving money. So John is going to, let's say he's going out with Alice. They're at a pub or a bar. Alice has paid for a drink for John, and now John, or the opposite, John has paid for a drink for Alice. Now she needs to send some money, some funds for John, and John said, hey, scan my address here and send me some private balance on Moonlight. So John will click on receive, and he doesn't need to select any providers because to receive funds, all I need to do is to generate the addresses and separate the amounts. So John can just say, hey, you want to send me 50 XLM? I'll generate a receiving address. Here is the QR code, you can scan it, and we can see the details below. Here we are generating 5 create addresses with various balances, and this is just a suggestion. Let's say that Alice wanna change it a little bit, send a different amount, she can do that. All he's doing is kind of creating a convenience for her. And here's the address in our custom format. I'll just copy it. And here on the sending side, we'll come with Alice, click on send. And now with the new provider that she selected, the Rio Bank, she's going to paste the address. We can see the amount here. We can see the entropy. We can increase the entropy, and this could mean adding more of Alice's own addresses to mix a little bit the amount sent and who are the receivers. Here's how much she's paying for the fees. I'll review the transaction, and here are all the details, all of the different addresses, and we can see here flagged with this icon are John's addresses, and we have a little bit of Alice's addresses as well as spending some funds from Alice's in the conditions, and here the total amount that is being moved, which you can see is not the original amount that John is requesting. So I'll go ahead and execute. This is going to go through Alice's provider. So Alice's provider is going to verify everything, make sure it's correct, spice up a little bit the bundle, and there you go, execute it. Alice has paid already. So if you come here to John's side, there you go, he received it. So John already has the funds, and if we come here to the history, we can see Alice's transaction, all the operations, the different spend conditions, the different create operations added by the provider, and so on. And if we click here, we can see all these details on chain. So there you go, it's a big transaction. There's a lot going on. I know it's hard to digest, but basically this is encapsulating all of those conditions that we mentioned and all of the custom authorization as well. So for now, I'll stop here. This is just a quick sneak peek of what we're doing, what we're cooking. We're going to add some further examples and use cases to highlight it later. A lot of what you're seeing here is a granular workflow because we want to highlight each individual part of the process. But sending money, receiving money, and deposit can be as quick as 1 or 2 clicks. We're just doing it this way to show all of the possible combinations under the hood that the wallet providers as well as the privacy providers can operate differently, can customize different for their own use cases and customers. So that's it for today. I'll be seeing you guys soon, and I hope you all have a blast when you try Moonlight in a few weeks from now. Thank you. Bye-bye.